So, this is gonna be a little bit of a different video because I have like 2 Bibles out and this notebook out, and I literally just thought of this like 2 seconds ago. I just finished the video before this. If I post this one in order, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I just thought of it, and here we go. A lot of you have seen that I do like these weird things now. Like I do like that and like that. I don't know if you can see actually. Like that and like that. And I just started like word studies, I guess is what you would call them. And I just, whatever comes to my mind, I write down. Sometimes I draw, but I'm not talented at drawing. But yeah, so we're going to talk about fruitfulness today because my word for the year, I always pick out like one word or one subject and then I study it out for the entire year. Like one year I studied out all the instances of fear not. One year I studied courage, and then this year I technically didn't really study a word. I studied women of the Bible just because it's something I always wanted to do and I never got around to doing, and I finally just decided I was going to do it. But next year I'm going to study fruitfulness, and mostly just being fruitful no matter what season or place in life you are in. So even if you're really, really old and you don't think you can do anything, or where you're really, really young and you don't think you can do anything. And the most like place that stands out to me, which may not stand out to everyone, is in Genesis, which is also something that somebody wanted me to study. So they suggested Genesis. So it kind of ties everything in together, and we'll do a little bit of both. So I'll do this, and then I'll do like actual study, and we'll make it work. And anyway, so I gotta go back because I'm gonna pull up my handy dandy BibleStudyTools.com, and here we go. So I'm gonna start off, and I'm not, well, should I try to use a pencil? Okay, normally what I do is I don't really care too much, and I don't use a pencil. No, I don't like that part. But I guess this time I'll use a pencil just because, you know, it's gonna be on YouTube. You might try a little more, you know. I'm not very good at calligraphy though, because you're supposed to be able to just like carelessly like but I'm like so rigid. I'm like, I gotta get this correctly. But whatever, we'll make it work. You can always tell I was a little nervous if I ever try to do calligraphy. So fruitful is the word, and I guess I could be cool and like try to draw fruit, but I don't know if that's gonna turn out too well. It's a problem. We're talking about fruitfulness. I think technically I decided my word was fruitful, but fruitfulness and fruit, whatever, same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna read this out loud actually so that you'll understand kinda what I'm talking about. So this one has stuff in the way, so I'll just use this one. Okay, so this is after Joseph is sold into slavery in Egypt. This is after Potiphar. This is after he gets out of the jail, and this is around the time, like I said, he gets a wife. Pharaoh gives him a wife, and this is after, you know, he interprets the dream, and then Pharaoh gets really happy with him. He has a wife called Asenath. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce it. And I'll read this section, and then we'll start talking about it. So I read the first verse. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, and the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the first Manasseh, for God, saith he, hath made me forget all the toil and all of my father's house. And And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteous that were in the land of Egypt ended. So, that's a little short section, but this is spoilers, so we'll not look at it. If you go and you look at the names that he gave them, so he called the firstborn Manasseh. And Manasseh, if you look it up, means causing to forget. So, and he mentioned that. He said that God made him forget all of his toil and his father's house. But the second one is named Ephraim, which is, I'm going to stop talking off camera. I didn't realize that you guys can't see because I'm not very smart. So, like I said, I'm on BibleStudy.com. So, if we go to the first one, Manasseh means causing to forget, okay? And then we go to Ephraim, which means double ash heap, or I will be doubly fruitful. So, this is his second son, but this is the exact son who is given the blessing over Manasseh. So, keep that in mind while we talk about this. But Ephraim basically means fruitful. And he was talking about how God still allowed him to be fruitful. And clearly in this instance, he's meaning like having children and, possibly he might mean that he helped Egypt not die to a famine through God's wisdom and everything that he gave him. But if you think about it, this is the time where Joseph, he was sold into slavery, which is by his brothers, which I could never even imagine. I didn't have the most amazing childhood growing up, but I wasn't sold to slavery by my brothers. So I don't even know how someone could even move on after that. But this is after his brothers betrayed him in the most vile way. And then also around the time that he was in jail for doing something that he didn't do because he was falsely accused of something. And so he's just having one bad day after the next, it seems like. And then finally, Pharaoh needs him and he needs his advice, and the only one that can do it is Joseph, because Joseph has been given the wisdom from God. And so he's finally in this place to where he's doing pretty good. And so he's being fruitful, and he has kids, he's in a pretty good position, and it seems like his life is going great. But all of that was stemming off from these complete betrayals, one after the other. And so in a different sense of fruitful, I think that we should still be fruitful and live with a purpose even when going through trials. So this is basically what Joseph did. And so I think that we should still live with a purpose and live fruitfully, and just like Joseph did. And so we should still love others when we feel unlovable, and we should strive to help others find peace even when it's lacking in our life. And so we can still bear fruit, which the fruit of the Spirit is, a very big thing that goes off in my brain after talking about it. But we should still bear the fruit of the Spirit when everything around us seems to be spiraling out of control, because we still can. And that's proven through Joseph. So even when he is falsely accused of something, or his brother sell him to slavery, he's still seeking God first, and he's still trying to do his best, and he's still trying to live a life according to the word of God and what he knows about God. And so even though he's just been sold into slavery and he keeps getting betrayed one time after another, he still is giving all the credit to God whenever he does something that isn't really him and it was God. So when he interprets the dream, he says, where is it? And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, "It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." And so he's still not taking credit for things that he shouldn't take credit for, the things that he really didn't do on his own. And he's still trying to live a good life and obey what he knows about God and what he knows God expects, and everything that he knows so far, just from learning from his father. And we can still do this even when it seems like our life is just one big betrayal after another, or one big mess after another. We can still live fruitful lives even if it seems like everything's just spiraling out of our control. And a lot of times when we're in those places, we get caught up in the situations and the circumstances, and we're like, well, I can't do anything because I can't even get out of bed today. I mean, that was my problem for a really long time. Around high school, I was really, really, really depressed, and I just could not get out of bed. And I always thought that I couldn't do anything because I just could barely even get out of bed in the morning. But we still can be fruitful even when we don't feel like we have control over anything like that. Because if you look at Jeremiah 17:7, we will look up that verse right now. So Jeremiah 17:8 says, "He is like a tree planted by water that spreads out its roots by the stream and does not fear when he comes. For its leaves remain green and is not anxious in the year of the drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit." And so this is Jeremiah is saying that those who trust in the Lord will bear fruit even during a time of drought. And we can be fruitful during a time of affliction. So, like it says, the whole reason it can bear fruit, even and it doesn't have any worries in the years of a drought, is because it spreads out its roots by the stream, and that stream would be God. And so that is exactly what Joseph did. Joseph made sure that his roots were deeply rooted in God. Roots were rooted. Anyways, and that is how we continue to be fruitful or live with purpose, and even when things are going crazy. And so obviously, if we're talking about being fruitful, we're going to need to talk about the fruit of the Spirit, which is what I'll do right here. I know that my S's kind of look like J's, and I'm trying to fix that. But so 1 is love, 2 is peace, is gentle, oops, I forgot the L, gentleness. 4 is joy. 5 is long suffering. 6 is goodness. 7 is faith. 8 is meekness. 9 is temperance. Okay, and these are the fruit of the Spirit. I'm going to section this off right here. And so obviously we need to look up the definition of fruitful, because we always do that in our word studies. Okay, so fruitful means producing good or helpful results, productive, producing many offspring, or producing many fruit. So, producing much fruit. I have absolutely no game plan for this page. Like, I don't know if I'm going to do, like, bubbles or, like, what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. Anyway, so we have producing much fruit. And then we can look up verses about being fruitful, which is normally what I do. And so what does it mean to be fruitful is one thing we can ask, I guess. And so there are some verses that talk about being fruitful that clearly won't necessarily apply to what we're talking about today, but it still talks about being fruitful. So like the first one is Genesis 1:28, and it's when God says, "Be fruitful and multiply." Obviously, that one's not applying to this one, but Colossians 1:10 does. So Colossians 1:10 says, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God. So that is talking about being fruitful. And so John 15:16 says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatsoever you ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you." So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, because then this video will be like 20 million minutes long. But I am going to go through like maybe 4. But my point is that you should read the verses instead of, I know a lot of people, whenever they want to do something, they just look up a list and then just write them all down without really looking at the context. And so some of these you don't really need context per se, because like Colossians 1:10 says, "So as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing and bearing fruit in every good work." That clearly is talking about the kind of fruit we're talking about. So some of them are just very clear they are, and then some of them are very clear that are not. Like Genesis 1:28, we said definitely wasn't applying to us because we're talking about fruitfulness in a spiritual sense, and they were talking about fruitfulness more in a physical sense. So sometimes you can just clearly tell, but sometimes you can't. And so sometimes you would need to go. I often look for, read at minimum the 5 verses before and the 5 verses after. I typically try to do the 10 verses before and the 10 verses after, or at least if there's like a section that starts from that section to, like, if I wanted to read verse 18, I'd start at 14 because it's sectioned off, and so clearly they go together. But yeah, so I'm going to go through 2 more maybe with you. And then obviously, we're going to do Galatians 5:22 through 23. Oop, I forgot that too. 5:22 through 23. And this is clearly this. And they sync up. So Galatians 22 through 23 says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law." And then, see, like in Psalm 128 and 3, it says your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Clearly not what we're trying to talk about today. See, also, obviously, we mentioned Jeremiah earlier, so we might as well put it down. Jeremiah 17, 7 through 8. I'm going to probably really speed through coloring this because you guys probably aren't going to want to see that too much. Okay, and